Hey guys, and welcome to my tutorial for concepting, modeling, sculpting, texturing and implementing an original weapon asset. I'm Floris Roding. I'm a graduating game artist at the University of the Arts Utrecht in the Netherlands. In the coming 4 episodes, I'm gonna show you how to go from a general concept, a general idea, to a working asset. One that looks fine, that works fine in a 3D environment in a game. And one that's really nice for your portfolio. First, a quick disclaimer. I'm not claiming this workflow to be the best one, the only one, or the fastest one. It's just the one that works for me. And it's one that is, in my experience, very easy to pick up. It's very easy to use in an industry environment. And it's very easy to iterate upon. Also, these skills that you're gonna learn are implementable in all sorts of different assets, in characters, in environments. So they're basically gonna set you off with a good foundation for a 3D asset pipeline. I basically wanted to make this tutorial series because even in my graduation year, there were a lot of people still scared of 3D softwares. Things like Substance Painter, Substance Designer, they were really frightened of the amount of functions you had, the amount of things you could do with them, and they just didn't know where to start. So this is hopefully gonna change that a bit and give you a general idea of how to set up your own workflow, how to use the different softwares in conjunction with each other and to support each other. Also during this series I'll mention when things can be done differently. Again, this is by far not the only workflow that's possible for an asset like this, and even for other assets there are different workflows you would use. But I'll mention that again should such a moment arrive. So without stalling any longer, let's jump into the first episode. My workflow heavily relies on placing the right boundaries at the right moment. Boundaries may sound constricting, but at the right times and in the right order, they give you a lot of creativity, a lot of out-of-the-box ideas. And a lot of creative ideas can spark from just setting up those rules for yourself. Full creative freedom can be liberating at first, but without the right boundaries at the right moments, it often creates plain and boring ideas. Take for example a shoe. Everyone knows what a shoe looks like. It's a thing to put around your foot. It's not particularly interesting. It doesn't have any interesting shapes, and the shoe you would draw if you would draw a shoe is just a shoe. But what if it would be a soldier's shoe? Suddenly it has some uses it has to have. It has to be sturdy, it can be muddy, has this different shapes, and it already gets more interesting. And what if the soldier was, for example, a commando doing night operations? Suddenly it had to be black, it had to be maybe more stealthy, it could even have a knife bound to the side of it or something. Constricting yourself with rules like this gives you more freedom to get more interesting ideas. And that's the way I try to approach every subject. So basically you're trying to answer some questions for yourself. What are you actually trying to make? What is the object? When did your story take place? When did your object appear? When was it used? Who did use it? That's probably the most important question, because for a weapon that's really important. And why? Why did you use it? Did they use it to attack someone, or did they use it to protect themselves? So I wanted to make a ranged weapon, which is a really big boundary on itself, because a weapon and it being ranged, it classifies it as probably a gun or a bow or something. It had to be in the post-apocalypse, so like 100 years from now, like technology from now, but ruined and bombed down and stuff like that. Also, where is a really good question as well, because that will give you a lot of opportunity to give it interesting details that it otherwise wouldn't have. So I already designed the character that the gun was going to be used by. It's going to be a girl. She grew up in the post-apocalyptic nuclear swamps and scrapyards and stuff. And she was stung by mosquitoes so often that she mutated into some mosquito lady. So basically, She's half mosquito, she has stilts, and she looks really weird, I suppose. She has to protect herself from bounty hunters and from just wanderers that want to do her harm and stuff. So that's why she carries the weapon. And as I said, she lives in the swamps and scrapyards and stuff. So the weapon can be inspired by that or made out of scrap even. So these are the sketches I made in the beginning for the character, which I had to work with. You can see I already decided on her having wings or some sort. Her being half mosquito, her having some weird legs, which I probably could use for the weapon. But I probably won't. And she has some missing limbs from the dangerous work in the swamps and scrapyards. Probably the corrosive materials as well and the nasty nuclear stuff, as well as her mutations. So her missing limbs could be a really interesting thing to use in the weapon. Also, she has some stilts with which she can safely cross the swamps. More safely, I guess. And a lot of bags and stuff for scavenging. Hooks to hang scavenging stuff on. Artifacts and things she found. So that gives me a rough couple of guidelines to start the first sketches with, I think. So I started working on thumbnails. I always like to split up my process in a couple of steps so that I can focus on different aspects. With thumbnails, that's really just the shape, just the silhouette. You're really looking for big shapes, for cool shapes. And just trying to get an overall feel for what you would like. I knew I wanted it to look kind of alien or something. Just not industry made or something. It has to be a bit interesting and improvised and a bit different, I think. Also, I wanted to make it look heavy. Just because scrap isn't known for its light properties. And it gives the character a very strong appearance, which is the look I was going for. Something like the weakness of her being hurt and being affected by her environment, and in combination with her inner strength and her being a mutated monster and stuff. So she should look powerful, and a heavy, somewhat clunky weapon will help with that. So again, I'm just looking for shapes. I'm not really going into detail yet, because that's just a waste of time. These are made very, very quickly and very, very dirty. And they're just to get a general idea of what I want. And most of the time the silhouette is one of the most important features of a weapon or a character or anything really. So it's good to iterate somewhat on it and really get something you like. Also, don't be afraid at this stage to go all out, to go crazy. It's what it's there for. No idea is too crazy yet because, well, if it's all shit, you'll just throw it away and start over again. I mean, it's just very iterative, very rough, and very easy. And a lot of fun. So I'm gonna speed up the rest of the process. Enjoy, and I'll see you when I finish thumbnailing. So now that we're ready making the first set of thumbnails, it's time to make some choices. I already decided while making this that I wanted the girl to have only her left arm intact. Her right arm had to be some sort of hook or some sort of otherwise amputated thing. So in other words, she shouldn't get much use out of her right arm for using the weapon, which gives me a lot of ideas to develop. You see in the bottom right one, I already made some sort of band that closes the arm in and makes the weapon usable from one arm. The bottom middle one as well. And I really liked that idea. I also really liked with the bottom right one that I had an undersling weapon, which would make it look so much more cooler, I think. That's the cool thing about making game art. I mean, sure, it has to have use and it has to have a reason why stuff is like that. But sometimes things are just cool and you just want them to look like that. Also, I figured if I'm gonna attach a weapon to it, like a melee weapon, like the spike I made in the bottom right one, it's gonna be so much more useful when it's an undersling weapon, because you can like deliver a really large punch with it. And if your arm is attached to the weapon by straps or something, it's gonna be that much more powerful as well. Also, I wanted to make it look versatile, so that's why I included some shoulder mount kind of things. And I really like the shape of the top left one. It really has an interesting alien-like shape. Something you would see in Mass Effect or in Fallout. Maybe more Fallout than Mass Effect, actually. But you know what I mean. Also, with a ranged weapon, it's good to think about what kind of ammunition it's gonna use. And I thought, like, she lives in a swamp and things are nasty and swampy out there. There's probably gonna be a lot of slugs, and now slugs are, as you may know, projectiles that are shot by shotguns and stuff like that. They're like the cartridges you put in a shotgun. So I wanted to make a really cheap pun out of it and insert like live radioactive nuclear slugs in like glass capsules. So it still shoots slugs, just slightly different ones. The use of this weapon would be like a combination of a heavy shotgun, you know, like the combat shotguns with magazines and stuff, and a grenade launcher. So like with a really big recoil, so with a lot of power but not a lot of muzzle velocity, I guess. And I wanted to make the shape of the weapon kind of tell that. To me, a good design tells a lot about itself by how it looks. So how it fires, what it fires, how it's being held, where it's made. Is it made in a factory or is it made in the town workshop, or even like this one, just in a scrapyard somewhere. So that way any sound effects and particle effects or stuff that get added later in the game perfectly match the model. So in order to achieve that, it's perfectly fine to use a couple of cliches, a couple of tropes, as long as you're being creative with them and combine them or alter them a bit, so you don't end up with something really plain. But it's good to know a rocket launcher from a sniper rifle or something, just by how it looks. You see me combining all the aspects from the other thumbnails, which I really liked, into one design. And that design I'm gonna take and bring over to the other softwares and make a 3D model out of it. First I'm going to make another silhouette, which I'm working on right now. And then I'm going to make like a 3D drawing just to figure out some stuff. To make sure everything works, because, well, silhouettes are very forgiving in things that look like they should work but really don't if you draw them in the 3D or even make them in 3D. So it's better to figure that out right now when we're still in 2D. So that's why I make a 3D drawing. Doesn't have to be beautiful, it probably isn't, but it should give you an idea of how it should look. Also, it's a great way to experiment a bit with color, because it's way easier to color something in here than it is in Substance later. So that's why you'll see me smacking on some colors in a minute. Anyway, I'm gonna speed this up again, and that's gonna be the end of the episode. So thanks so much for watching. Have fun watching the end of this episode, and I hope to see you in the next episode. Next episode we're gonna focus on blocking out, modeling, and just getting the large shape, and eventually getting to a point where we can take it into Zbrush and sculpt it. But that's gonna be the next couple of episodes. I hope you had fun watching this one. I hope you learned something, or at least were entertained. And I'll see you in the next episode. Bye!
Throw your cranes up.